Is this photo being completely honest with you? What if I told you it's better because I hid a little of the truth? Every photo I've ever loved was a little bit dishonest, waiting for my moment, the lens that I grabbed that morning, or avoiding a child just outside the frame. That dishonesty isn't a flaw. That's what makes it art. But don't just take my word for it. Let's spend a little time with one of last century's great critics, Susan Sontag, and explore photography less as truth-telling and more as storytelling. Deception isn't the problem if we're being honest with ourselves. It's the entire point. Sontag assassinates the idea of photography as documentary. It can never be anything but art. She describes every angle from which photography is manipulative, deceptive, opportunistic, and misleading. She writes about the selective nature of what we photograph and the deeper problem of exactly who is taking the photos anyway. The attempts through history to create a whole narrative from disjointed fragments of images and alter the context of those images in pursuit of an agenda. The illusion between authenticity granted by a preserved photo and the weight of importance granted to those images, even though the original context has been stripped away and replaced with something more convenient. Sontag talks of the dirty deal between art and truth, and how we often conflate one for the other. It's not that photography is inherently dishonest, but in our world, everything is political, and the very act of pretending otherwise is one of the most egregiously political acts you can commit. Susan Sontag was a writer and critic born in the 1930s and passed away over 2 decades now. She was gifted with the ability to observe what other people overlooked and the talent to explain her ideas in words. In 1977, she published a book of essays called On Photography, and I highly recommend reading this, although it is heavy going in parts and mostly it's just a lot to take in. I have been consuming this in small doses, but coming back to it again and again, because a good book will always be ready for you, waiting for the right moment. Susan Sontag's words predate social media. They highlight that photography has been manipulated and manipulative for a very long time, even without help from Zuckerberg and his friends. I will barely touch the surface of what she wrote, but I want to share some of what has inspired me to think deeper about what we photograph and why. The photographer only gets to create the photo. They do not have the final say in how other people respond to it. An audience may see that image in ways that the photographer did not intend. With my photography, I want to not only reveal a part of the story, but enough enticement to draw the audience inwards in search of what lies beneath the pixels. Sometimes this means allowing room for the viewer to construct their own explanation, a unique and personal one. Sometimes a photo can offer more questions than answers. Most of us think of photography as being somehow honest and genuine, as if the photo can be a source of evidence. And I don't see photography like that at all. Every photo is a combination of many choices, and in recognizing those choices, we see the intention of the photographer. The photo is a message, not a moment. We choose which stories we want to tell.
We'll go to the park, laugh away the blues. People will stare, asking have they lost their minds. And when it gets dark, we'll play our favorite tune, heart and soul. Dance under the moon. When my dreams get so hazy and skies become gray, you'll be the one to guide me home.
The first known technology for retouching photos astounded crowds in 1855. That the camera could lie made getting photographed much more popular. When we want to say that someone is beautiful, we say things like, they would look good in a photo. And the great hesitation of being photographed ourselves is not because of some ancient belief that our soul will be stolen, but the modern anxiety that we won't look pretty in the image.
And miles been sailing through the sea to find you here, standing next to me. So, my love, be my everything. Heart of gold, stay here for a while. When your life gets so crazy, you lose your way.
Ironically, time devalues the photograph itself. The context and comprehension of that moment can get lost over time. The very cultural understanding that has been embellished by a photo can end up missing in future generations. And in that absence, the contents of a photo becomes a mystery. Some mysteries are given a second glance, but most are simply ignored in favour of the more familiar. The human brain is most comforted when things are fully explained, even if the explanation is wrong. Let's take a moment to think about how photography has marked the progress of black rights in America. What does it mean to see a photo of a black woman being arrested in 1950? How many people in her day would have called her a criminal? You look back at those same images today, and it's the police who we recognise as the criminals. Things change. Our ability to interpret the scene changes. Every time we become an observer to an image, we have a chance to see it differently. Sontag is big on the idea that photography takes a piece of the world and instantly turns it into the past. She calls it instant antiques. We think of photography as preserving the moment, but in many instances it denies the present that we are living in now. The photo can take on more meaning and substance than the moment itself ever could. The photo becomes a definitive record of the event, a lasting rendition. that is more real than reality itself. We often fail to recognise a photo as being incomplete. We do not see what we do not see, and there will always be a process of selection that takes place before an image is presented to us. Sontag might argue that photography makes a claim to be true, a claim that the art of painting, say, could never attempt. A fake painting will falsify the history of art. A fake photo will falsify the history of mankind. Photography can make a moment more real, can make the trivial seem immense. We tell and retell that moment in pictures as often as is required to lock it into our memories. Shared from person to person, a single moment becomes a shared moment. A private moment becomes public. The better you understand your subject, the better you can find ways to express them in a photo. Does that make photography a process of documentary or art? And it's a trick question, of course, because everything is art. It is always art. Once you let go of photography as the pursuit of documentary and embrace the camera as a tool of art, as a tool of expression, you are free to be creative on your own terms. You are free to pick sides and tell the story that you want to tell. And that's what makes one photo more compelling than another, the extent to which the photo expresses a point of view. Is the photographer themselves revealed within the image, or are they hiding all traces of themselves, trying to pretend that they are neutral? Never be afraid to take sides. The camera is useless until you give it purpose. Those are my thoughts today on Susan Sontag and some of her amazing insights into photography. If you enjoyed this, you might also enjoy my monthly photo zine. It's on my website along with more of my photos, my blog, and information about the workshops that I run. Head over to ewenbell.com and please take a look. Please hit the like button here today or leave a comment to say hello. Thanks for joining me.